There's some hesitation I've heard in my conversations and advising communities of moving away from providing equal support. So every student gets the same treatment. We call all the students in at certain moments during the semester, or we deliver an advising appointment in the same way to each and every student, to a shift to more equitable student support, not just to try to drive to close equity gaps, but to provide support that meets the needs of each particular student, and recognizing that there are students who are going to be able to navigate the landscape a little bit more easily versus students who maybe will need more support, and trying to differentiate approach across those different needs as one way of addressing some of these capacity constraints.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting idea, right? And at the end of the day, for me, I always come back to by nature, academic advisors are helpers, right? They want to make sure that students are helped and that the student gets the most out of the experience. And that's why I love the academic advising space. But I do think that there has been the idea of what we do for one, we do for all. And I do think we have opportunities, and we can see this in the data, right, Katie, that you've got some students that really need minimal assistance. If you send an email nudge at the right time, you have a walk-in hour group advising that they can drop into, that they're not going to need a whole lot of help to kind of get from point A to point B. Unfortunately, what you also see is that those are often the students who end up eating up a lot of your advising hours, and instead of spending the time with the students who most need it, right? And so I do think in the advising space, we need to think about what you said, right? It's not about equal, but it's about equity. Who needs the help? Who needs the time with the advisor, and at what point do they need that interaction? And so I do think one of the things with the predictive tools that we've got, it's really nice because from day one, you can know if you've got a student who is struggling and needs some assistance and can do the reach out. But that is a difference in frame of mind in the advising world, is to get their heads around the idea and the concept that, hey, I can focus on a particular group, and in doing so, I'm going to lift that group and help that group to come up and to be successful. And then again, with some strategic communication and timed outreaches and different things like that, your folks who are more likely going to make it without heavy interaction are still going to be fine. I saw this a lot when I was at the University of Michigan. So I was part of their College of Engineering and Computing area, and we had students who were fourth generation, fifth generation College of Engineering, and they, to a certain extent, had advisors at home, right? And then we had our students who were first generation, first time they'd ever been in Ann Arbor, first time they'd ever been to the University of Michigan, or the first in their family to go through school. There's a difference between those two students, right? And I think what you're talking about is, how do we honor and kind of respect those differences and give the help to that fourth generation student that he or she needs, but also spending maybe a little bit more time with the first generation student so that that student can understand kind of the rules of engagement and learn a little bit about the ecosystem that is higher education.
Yeah, it's moving from sort of a passive, like I have a calendar open, come and see me for advising, and letting students determine how they're going to fill that calendar, to a more intentional approach where you are prioritizing students who maybe are less likely to be a hand raiser or to come seek the support or know what kinds of supports are available, making space for them to get in. I know oftentimes when I led my advising team, my advisors would say, but my calendar is packed. How can I get these students in who aren't making appointments? They felt busy. Our lobby was full. They had full inboxes, but that percentage of students who was the most vulnerable was often not amongst the students populating that lobby.
Yeah, and I think some of the ways that we've kind of come around that to a certain extent, right? Is so let's say that you've got a group of students that you want to get in, and they're not necessarily responding to the typical email outreach, and so they're not coming to your calendar, and you're working with the student who is likely to persist anyways. we utilize graduate assistants quite a lot, and also our front desk student workers. And so we'd provide them a list, and it would just say something like, hey, here's the 50 students that we want to invite in. And so it'd be, hey, this is Rob from the College of Engineering and Computing. I'm a front desk worker, and your advisor would love to see you. Sent you an email. If you could take a look at that and maybe come in and see us, we'd love to see you. And maybe they answer the phone, maybe they don't. But even if they don't answer the phone, they may go back in, take a look at that email, and there's some kind of personalization. But I think sometimes the advisor feels like, well, I've got to do all of it, right? I don't want to turn over the agency, so to speak, to the graduate assistant or to the student worker. But I think because of the amount of work that's on the advisor, sending a well thought out email makes some sense. Sending a text certainly can work, but the good old telephone, right? And having somebody make calls can be a really good way to do that. And we found some success with our grad students making those calls, and with student workers making the calls. And I think that's a way that you can, not putting it all onto the advisor, right? The advisor doesn't have to do all of the steps of the process. They can kind of lay it out, get the list, and then get that over to whoever they may have in support of them, and start trying to get more students into the center that need to be there.